C'est une immense émotion qui remplit mon cœur en voyant devant moi la ville de Montréal française. Au nom du vieux pays, au nom de la France, je vous salue. Je vous salue de tout mon cœur. Je vais vous confier un secret que vous ne répéterez pas. Ce soir, ici, et tout le long de ma route, je me trouvais dans une atmosphère du même genre que celle de la libération. Et tout le long de ma route, outre cela, j'ai constaté quel immense effort de progrès, de développement et par conséquent d'affranchissement vous accomplissez. Vous accomplissez ici. Et c'est à Montréal qu'il faut que je le dise, parce que s'il y a au monde une ville exemplaire par ses réussites modernes, c'est la vôtre. Je dis c'est la vôtre. Et je me permets d'ajouter, c'est la nôtre. Si vous saviez quelle confiance la France réveillée après d'immenses épreuves porte maintenant vers vous, si vous saviez quelle affection elle recommence à ressentir pour les Français du Canada. Et si vous saviez à quel point elles se sentent obligées de concourir à votre marche en avant, à votre progrès. C'est pourquoi elle a conclu avec le gouvernement du Québec, avec celui de mon ami Johnson, des accords pour que les Français de part et d'autre de l'Atlantique travaillent ensemble à une même œuvre française. Et d'ailleurs, le concours que la France va tous les jours un peu plus prêter ici, elle sait bien que vous le lui rendrez parce que vous êtes en train. Vive Montréal, vive le Québec. Vive le Québec libre.
Now that is the famous Vive le Québec libre. Long Live Free Quebec speech that was delivered by the then French President Charles de Gaulle in Montreal in Quebec in 1967. His speech gave huge impetus to the Quebec sovereignty movement. The significance of France in the Quebec freedom movement is reflected in the flag of Quebec, known as the fleur de lis, of the flower of lily, which is the national symbol of France. The Quebec flag with the white cross on a blue field itself has been borrowed from the ancient French military banner. The Quebec sovereignty movement has continued since the 1760s. The fight between the Francophone and Catholic population of Quebec and the largely Protestant population of Canada. As Canada continues to give safe havens to the Khalistani secessionist movement and a free rein to the terrorists, we on NewsX run this campaign to invite the people of Quebec to reignite their freedom movement, Vive le Québec Libre, here on the soil of India. Ambassador Baswati Mukherjee, if we go back in history and talk about the freedom movement, the movement of sovereignty of Quebec, and the role that was played by the then president of Charles de Gaulle, and if you could reiterate for us how important and significant was that important speech that he made in 1967 when he visited Quebec.
It's a very iconic speech. Fortunately, I'm a fluent French speaker, so I could have translated it for you sentence by sentence. Basically, what President de Gaulle, who is one of the most iconic presidents, was trying to say is that Quebec is part of French history, culture, and civilization. That Quebec and Montreal have got nothing in common with the rest of Canada. Its history, culture, and civilization are linked with the mother country, France. That France wants Quebec to be free and a separate country which would have its own language, its culture, etc. If you look at the troubled history of Canada before its independence, you would then know that there were savage battles fought between the English and the French with regard to Canadian territory, and at one point the French almost succeeded in liberating Montreal from the rest of Canada. In order to accommodate Montreal within the Canadian Federation, it is compulsory for every Canadian citizen to learn French in school, to speak it fluently and pass the exam. And the two working languages in Canada, whether you speak it well or you don't, are French and English. But even then, it's a very tenuous link, because I've been to Quebec. Quebec and Montreal, if you go there, Megha, is exactly like France. It has nothing in common with the rest of Canada. And the people of Quebec want to be liberated from the rest of Canada, whom they consider to be bigoted English, who don't understand French language, French cuisine, French wine, French culture, French civilization. I think it is more than enough time for us in India to support the movement of liberation, because it is a movement that is supported by each and every Quebecois living in Montreal and in Quebec. So I think we should encourage this movement for independence, and we should welcome the day when Montreal becomes a free country, joins the United Nations with its capital Quebec. We would encourage them to open their embassy here, and we would welcome the first ambassador of Montreal in India with every honor due to him, because he's finally been able to liberate his country from the shackles of colonial rule, as what they call it in French. They call it the shackles of English colonial rule, which they are still going through in Montreal. That's the history that he wanted me to give, Megha. That's the history.
Yes, an ambassador also talking about the very famous 1995 Quebec referendum, which was unfortunately passed in favor of people who were wanting to be part of Canada, and the percentage was just about 50.95% who voted in favor of wanting to be part of Canada. And that's why we talk about how it is important for India to be the country that goes about supporting Quebec in its referendum, which has been going on, like I said, for decades together, from the 1700s up until now. While there have been murmurs that have been spoken about, it is time to again garner the people, garner the referendum, garner the voices and bring them over here in India. And the reason why we do so, and Sumit, if you could get into the conversation about how the Canadians have been giving a free rein to Khalistani terrorists in Canada for decades together now. So why should India not be reciprocal in bringing about referendums, bringing about the separatist movements, whether we talk about Quebec, whether we talk about the North Island, whether we talk about the Scottish referendum?
Megha ji, thanks for having me on your show. You see, it's very simple. First of all, India does not interfere in anybody's internal affairs, but the kind of response we have been getting from Canadians, Quebec is a civilian movement, while as Khalistani is a terrorist movement. There's a difference between the two. When we choose to support the Quebec movement, it is the will of the people. And if you look at the voting, it was 50.95 to 50.05. Now that time has come, the way Canada is behaving, the way these Khalistanis are holding ransom to Justin Trudeau government, and unfortunately, the way Canadian Prime Minister has chosen to behave, unfortunately, the path he has chosen to take, I think we are within our complete rights to call, help them here, give them an embassy here, let them people come and have a peaceful referendum here. Will not support any terrorists or any violence or any way of that kind. But if it's a peaceful referendum, the people of Quebec want a voice, like we have for Tibetans, we have a government in exile here. Same way for the Quebec people, we can have a government in exile there. We can provide them whatever they want, because it is no longer an internal problem of India, of Canada, as long as their soil is used against propaganda for India. You have these Khalistanis calling for the death of my Prime Minister. You have these Khalistanis calling for the death of our External Affairs Minister, our diplomats. Everything the water has crossed the tipping point now. I mean, there is nothing which is holding us back. All those diplomatic niceties are gone. It is the time that India shows we can hit you back exactly in the same point. We'll hit you back where it hurts. And of course, no terrorism, no separatists of that kind, and no kind of violence, but any kind of civil movement, any kind of people-led movement should get 101% support from India, and with the people of India. We, the ordinary people of India, will also support it. It's not only the government of India, we, the people of India, will also support it, because we feel so bad. How can they let their land to be so blatantly used against India and against Indian interests? So we, as the people of India and the government of India, are equally concerned here. Equally concerned. If the people of India want the Quebec referendum to happen and they want our country, India, to be facilitator for this. This is now what the Janardhan wants. It's not what you and me want, Meghaji. This is what the mood and sentiment of the country is after seeing this drama and this circus of absurd what has been going on.
No, absolutely. Sandeep Chandra, also independently, without stirring up the cause of the Khalistani movement, the Khalistani secessionist movement, terrorism that is emanating out of Canada, we talk about Quebec, and there have been a number of protests that have taken place. There are a number of leaders from Quebec who have reached out to European countries. They have met ministers, they have met parliamentarians in rest of Europe talking about their cause. So it's high time invitations are sent out to the people of Quebec, to the representatives of Quebec, to the leaders of Quebec to come home in India, because we are very interested in taking up their cause as well. Perhaps they might not be aware of it, but once they are, through the medium that we are taking forth the message, they would be very interested in coming over here in India. And with the kind of stature India has currently in the global scenario, that would definitely give an impetus to their movement.
Yeah, Megha, is my voice clear?
Yes.
Yeah, you see, you have really asked a very intelligent and pointed question. You actually hit the nail on the head. It is high time India exposes the Canadian nexus, and I will come to the Khalistan point later on. The Quebec needs to be liberated from Canada. The people out there are totally, they want to have their own state. They speak their own language. And today you are very right. India, Prime Minister Modi's efforts and proactive actions and consequential actions, pro-India actions, have put India on top of the table of countries of the world. Today, India needs to use its clout in the United Nations to take up Quebec's cause, to expose the most irresponsible and useless Prime Minister of Canada, Justin Trudeau, who is sitting in the lap of Khalistanis to save his government, and also take up this issue of Quebec. And full marks to NewsX. let a referendum be launched from India, and you will find that people of Quebec will vote, unequivocally and totally. It will be a lopsided kind of a referendum towards separating from Canada. Also, I would like to say that, it is the pot calling the kettle black. Today, Canada has become a hotbed of Khalistani terrorists. Today, Justin Trudeau has been exposed, in front of the whole world. And I must compliment Prime Minister Modi's government. It has taken the bull by the horns, and it has now blocked all visas. So, fact of the matter is this: Canada should be exposed as far as Quebec is concerned. And people in Quebec have been suffering from long. They need to be removed from the shackles of Canada, and they need to have their own culture. They need to have their own language. And like Ambassador Mukherjee very rightly said, if you go to Montreal, you don't feel you're in Canada. You are in another country. So India needs to now rake up this issue in a forum none less than the United Nations.
Absolutely.
And also people in India should need to be educated about the plight of Quebec people.
Right.
Also, I would like to say that Justin Trudeau, he is warned that do not, cozy up to Khalistanis. You've been doing it for long. You are exposed, and your country is becoming a country of extremists where gang wars are the order of the day. Killings of extrajudicial.
Right. Okay, fair enough. Dr. Ravi Gotse also, get into the conversation. And Ambassador Mukherjee made a very important, pragmatic point that this is the opportunity for India to invite Quebec people, invite Quebec representatives, their leaders, and perhaps even look at the possibility of opening up the embassies over here, opening up their consulates over here, maybe even a mission to stand side by side with the Quebec sovereignty movement and tell them that India, in all practical purposes, is backing them up. How possible, how plausible can this be?
I respectfully disagree. I think the Khalistan movement and the Quebec movement both exist on paper. They don't exist on real life. A recent population survey was taken of Quebecy people, Quebecois, and only 28% supported, even considering independence. The poll that we were talking about, the referendum, was in 1995. Khalistan was news in 1980s. Who has ever heard of Khalistan news for past 25 to 30 years? Means it is absurd to think of Sikhism separate from the Indian mainstream. I think India should have done better by totally ignoring these people. Means some people protested at the embassy, and we should have just increased quietly the security. We are giving these people, 4 or 5 people, handful of people, the thing that they sorely lack and desperately crave.
But the point is, India was not giving them a platform. The platform has been given by an official head of the state of a country, of Canada, and that's how
I would like to say
the Khalistani secessionist movement has now garnered international headlines. So the movement that is in its core a terrorist organization is now being plastered on international media as an activism. So that is the point of concern. That is an abomination with Prime Minister Trudeau taking up the cause of the Khalistanis as some sort of a quote-unquote freedom movement.
Let me just finish my point. I think India is becoming a superpower, financially, militarily. I'm very proud of that as an expat Indian. But with great power comes great responsibility. Diplomacy needs to be little more mature. Means it's like little childish. हम ईट का जवाब पत्थर से देंगे. ईट भी हमें ही लगते हैं, पत्थर भी हमें ही लगता है. What kind of nonsense is this?
So are you saying if the Canadian Prime Minister accuses India of assassination, we should just sit quiet and ignore it?
No. Let me just finish my point, please. Okay? If you are in a hole, you should stop digging.
Are we in a hole?
No. Let me just finish my point. Trudeau doesn't speak for Canada. If you take the popularity vote, Trudeau only has
but he's still the Prime Minister of the country. So whether he is popular or his approval ratings have gone down, he nonetheless, whether you like it or not, till the time 2025 general elections happen, and after the fact that he loses the election, can you say that it is his personal point of view?
No,
Till the time he is the head of the state of Canada, he's speaking as a representative of Canada.
Let me finish my point. He can be removed tomorrow. It's a parliamentary democracy. There could be a vote of no confidence. He could be removed tomorrow. What I'm saying is, say like we have now stopped the visas, right, for the Canadians. So now 15,000 students who have worked all their life, their parents have put money, they're going to go to Canada. These young kids will be ambassadors of India. People in Canada are very nice, democracy living. Let the kids go there. As a retaliation, if Canada stops visas to a student, that's not good. And
Canada in fact cannot afford to stop visas because their economy runs, they are given, in 2 years you get citizenship of Canada. Why do you think there are such easy rules for becoming a Canadian citizen? Why do you think Canada has not stopped and retaliated and reciprocated and suspended visa of Indian nationals? Because it wants Indian students. Because without the skilled labor of India, it stops functioning. It's already in recession. Its economy is going to become stagnated. All right, Ambassador Mukherjee, would you like to get into the conversation?
I wanted to say that I respect Dr. Godse's views, and I agree with him on one perspective, that the Khalistani movement has no support at all. On the other hand, I would like to remind him, as a student of history as well as a diplomat who has visited Montreal many times, that there is a hope among many sections of the people of Montreal for liberation from what they call English colonial culture. Now, whether that is 50% or not, that is for Dr. Godse to tell us, because he lives there, I don't live there. But what I wanted to explain to Dr. Godse was that when the Prime Minister of Canada, after attending the G20 summit and enjoying Prime Minister Modi's generous hospitality, goes back to the Canadian Parliament, he accuses India of organizing extrajudicial killings on another country's soil. He names our diplomat, which is against the Vienna Convention, thereby endangering the life of our diplomat. Whereas when we expelled the Canadian diplomat, we did not give his name. Names are never given. It means that as long as this man is on Canadian soil, and I hope and pray he's on a flight back to Delhi, his life is held hostage to those Khalistanis who want to kill him. And then, I agree also with Dr. Godse that a country that has been colonized for 180 years is naturally sensitive to such absurd allegations brought by white people against us. Naturally, we are sensitive. We have suffered at the hands of what we call in Hindi, the Goras. But let us not forget that we are a self-respecting country. We are the world's largest democracy. We are proud of our Prime Minister. We are proud of the progress we've made. We cannot sit silent when a member of a G7 country not only brings these allegations, he tries to get other G7 countries to gang up with him against us. So we have to rebut him. We have to tell him, show us your evidence. And we have to also tell him that the whole history of extrajudicial killings is a white man's game. Who brought down Osama bin Laden? Who killed people in other countries? This was a white man's game. It's never been part of India's culture and civilization. We don't believe in such cowardly acts. But yes, we must rebut it, because it is a slur on the honor of India, on what our Prime Minister says, that Udhara Charitanama tu Vasudeva Kutumbakam means it is only for the generous hearted, that the world is one family. That is what India is. Yeah. That is not what Canada is.
Very well said, Ambassador. Major Sudhakarji, would you like to get into the conversation, particularly about the Quebec referendum and how we need to be part of this huge consensus that allows for Quebec to fight for its freedom and get it?
Megha, good evening. Thank you again getting me to your show. Excellent question you have asked. In the time frame which is obtaining today, it is very important to bring the global order, give them a pointed reference that there is a QPQ. QPQ means that if a thing like Khalistan can be imposed on India, there is also an option like the Quebec movement, which can be reminded. It is a stark reminder for the existence of a Canada as one of the democracies, thriving democracies, and with a mixed economy, to tell them that in your backyard, there are people who are making noise. You please put your house in order, then you look at disturbing or causing turbulence for a country like India. India on its own, it's not a nation, it's a civilization. We have gone through long journey of self-governance. The democracy people say Greece is the oldest. I say that India is the oldest. And by, we have also become the largest economy in the world at some point in time. And now, unfortunately, because of colonialism, we have been depleted. We have been actually fleeced to the bone, and there is nothing left at the time of the independence. So from there, we have grown as the 5th largest economy. In next couple of years' time, will be the 3rd largest. By 2075, domain experts say we'll be the supreme commander in economy as also military might. So be that as it may, Megha, you have made a very important point, but one of our co-panelists has brought out a very important reminder to all of us. Great nations have to have responsibility to shoulder. Is this the world order that we are talking of in Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam? Answer is no. But if there is somebody who's trying to put us, show us eyes and the teeth, then we must have our QPQ ready up our sleeve to tell them and remind them that, friend, if you do this to us, we can do that also to you. And third and last point is that this particular talk that you are having or the panel discussion, I must compliment NewsX, must compliment you. You are flagging a very important issue. In the 21st century, this is not going to take us anywhere. India is the only leader, the leading nation in the world, which is teaching everyone one earth, one family, one future. Therefore, we need to weigh the pros and cons, decide for ourselves if it is one family and one planet, then is this what we are looking at? Answer is no. But if there is a troubleshooter like the Prime Minister of Canada, I think it is right in earnest for India to tell him that, friend, you mend your ways. If you don't, we have this card to actually play. We can do it and do it with a lot of diplomatic finesse and excellent perfection, be it the military might or the economic strength or otherwise. All the dime when you talk of, we talk of diplomacy, the intelligence, the military strength, and the economy. All 4 components will come into play with a massive slap on its on the face, and only then the Canada is going to be woken up from the slumber to mind and also practice what they are preaching. What are they preaching? The rules-based international order. And what are the practice?
Fair enough. Yes. We take forward the Free Quebec referendum. Vive le Quebec libre. So here's what we at NewsX are going to do. We are going to start an online referendum campaign for the freedom movement of Quebec. We will invite Quebec leaders to India and give them a platform to have discussions with our leaders to speak and then do something concrete about the referendum Quebec. Indian leaders are then going to be facilitators in holding talks about freedom of Quebec. Ideally, it would be great if our Indian leaders would actually go to Montreal, go to Quebec and hold talks with the representatives in Quebec and discuss about what can be done in practical ways to get the freedom that the people of Quebec have been wanting for since decades now. In fact, it would be downright, welcoming for the Quebec people if there were speeches that could be made to invigorate the people, the masses, to go back to their core to demand the freedom that they have for long been looking for. There could also be possibilities to facilitate trilaterals that could happen between India and France and the Francophone, that is Quebec, in reviving the campaign that was long led by Charles de Gaulle. There is then another opportunity to set up a Quebec mission here in India, in New Delhi, to go about giving support, not just tacitly, but also on an official level to the people of Quebec. There should be allowing and giving space to the Quebec protesters, to the Quebec activists to stand up, fight for their cause, and take India as a support, as a fallback in terms of holding protests, raising slogans, doing activism work, and talking about what the freedom movement of Quebec is all about. Now, amidst all these discussions and the points that I've made, let's start off this conversation, and let's get Mr. Harinder Sikka on the telecast with me. Now, Mr. Sikka, speaking about all these ideas for a campaign, at least on an individual level, on the level of a media agency, there are certain things that we can do. We can give our platform to the people of Quebec, to the representatives of Quebec, get them on board, ask them to speak about what their freedom movement stands for, and where is it that they stand in currently fighting for their cause, do online petitions, and what are the other ways and means that India can go about supporting this cause? Okay, while you're trying to fix that audio with Mr. Harinder Sikka, Lieutenant General Kamaljeet Singh is also on the telecast with me, and Lieutenant General, again taking forward this conversation. It shouldn't just remain on television channels and publications and articles and publications. It has to be there has to be a feasible plan. It has to be played out in practicality as well.
See, Jai Hind, it's a very novel subject that you have taken up. But let's go back into history. Maharaja Ranjit Singh, one of the advisors was a French general. A lord had come and he used to advise the Maharaja Ranjit Singh's army, and he trained them to fight, possible adversaries which were British. Now, similarly, we have certain areas like Puducherry, Karikal, Chandranagar, they have been French colonies. So we have a certain amount of resident cultural knowledge, language, and all that which is resident in Puducherry and these satellite territories. That apart, we have strategic interests with France, which have magnified in the past few years, especially with the kind of support we are drawing from France in our defense production and in our strategic tie-ups. So all these are contributory factors which we have to look at. Now, traditionally, India has believed in concept of allowing people to gain autonomy, which is a reasonable autonomy. We are helping Tamilians also to gain, to get 13th Amendment implemented in Sri Lanka. And in a way, Bangladesh also came about because they were not treated well by Pakistan, and East Pakistanis needed a territory of their own. We are not in this game of breaking countries, but we are certainly in this field to give people legitimate opportunities to voice their opinion. We are not going to start with an end state to create chaos in Canada, or I would tend to believe, whereas, it will be very easy for people to say that just do tit for tat and just sort of this thing. India is a mature democracy. India is a voice of Global South. India has taken up very good causes. And so, to that extent, as a leverage, we can help people from Quebec. Because see, in our case, Khalistani problem has been allowed to fester for too long by Canada, unfortunately. See, there is no viability of Khalistan except for in Canada. You can have the capital in Surrey or Brampton and all those areas, because in India, there is no purchase for that. There is no support. Because when Amrit Pal was arrested, nobody stood in his support. So if you want to make a Khalistan, make it there. That's possible. So in order to put some sense in Canadian intelligentsia and these people, it can be used as a leverage, and it can be used to give them a legitimate platform to voice their opinion and legitimate aspirations. I'll say that way.
Yeah.
But if Canada sees sense, we can be also a bridge, we can be partners, we can help them to get together better. And India has got a lot of French tourists come to India, a lot of people speak French over here. I told you about Puducherry, and we have kind of relationships that we have with Francophone countries. So that all can be used to
Absolutely.
advantage of both countries.
To leverage this. Okay. Major General Shashi Asthana, how feasible is the idea of bringing these talks on a diplomatic level with the association that India has with France, and France which has continued to support Quebec for its liberation? There are already individual level communication and discussions that are held by the leaders of Quebec who travel far and wide in Europe. How feasible can this be made into official communication where heads of the states are also then partaking in this idea, in this cause of the people of Quebec?
See, as a concept, now that Justin Trudeau has acted very irresponsibly and immaturely, so therefore, to put the right sense in mind, their fault lines can also be indicated. And therefore, when we are looking at their fault lines and we are trying to indicate that, Quebec comes to the forefront. There is no doubt that the Franco-Saxon community has a different take as far as the Canadian society is concerned. And that doesn't match with the rest of the Canada. Their official language is France, and they actually got together in 1867, although this movement was much earlier. So therefore, there is a level of disgruntlement to some extent, and there is a need or call for the freedom. So indicating that everybody has some kinds of fault lines, and Canada has far too many of them, is very much in order. And also, as I totally agree with General KJ when he mentioned that we have very good strategic partnership with France. We go along together. They are the resident partners in Indian Ocean. And therefore, when we talk of Indo-Pacific strategy, they are our very, I think, eminent partners. Now, this angle we did not explore with France so far. But notwithstanding that, if this has got some support from France side, then there is no harm in we indicating that we could also join that support or help France in raising that voice,
right,
if the voice is credible and if the leadership is credible. Because for any movement like that, there must be a credible leadership, and that leadership will be able to, like certain cases, the examples which were given by General KJ, there was a very strong leadership in Bangladesh, and that's how we could work that out. And the atrocities which the Pakistanis were creating. So there has to be a fairly troubled population with a leader to whom you can help, and thereafter practically manage this kind of crisis in a country.
Okay.
Now, we are not known, in my last point, we are not known for, we haven't actually tried such stunts outside. And
I wouldn't call it a stunt. I would rather say a support to the aggrieved people of Quebec, or for that matter, the other campaigns that we've raised, where people of Ireland want to get separated from Britain. The people of Scotland want a liberation for themselves.
I agree that as far as America is concerned, there have been 6 overt regime changes and 42 covert regime changes, and that's the way they develop it. But as far as we are concerned, so far we haven't, raising this voice is fine. Giving them platform is also fine. After all, we gave this voice to Palestinians. much earlier than anybody else in the world gave. So there are precedences, and if a situation like that comes, we can do it. There is a precedence in place. But as far as Canada is concerned, the kind of nonsense which they are trying to do, and I think this Khalistan cause remains only within the Canada's territory, or maybe within that area.
Yeah.
So let them make a Khalistan in Quebec territory, as far as we are concerned.
Okay. All right.
All right.
Let me also get in Major General, beg your pardon, Major General Sudhakar ji as well. Now, the BJP leader, Bijayan Jai Panda, has also spoken about it. He has said that we need to be giving space to the Quebec leaders to have discussions, to have these debates, give them a platform over here. So this is interesting to note that there seems to be political will as well. Because once we get the voice of the people, the voice that we are looking to channelize and bring forth the point, can then be facilitated with our political leaders taking up the cause. Can there be a fruition of these ideas and these campaigns that we run?
Yeah, Megha, good evening. Thanks for back-to-back invitation for the show. Quick points I want to make. It's good. The political leadership, the political will is there, but we need to be very sure about the end state we are looking at. Where is India today, and where do we want to go from here? What is this is for the first time the present government has identified and formulated some kind of a long-term perspective. By 2047, India has to become a global power. This is the kind of milestone and objective setting is very, very important for nation building. Now, having said that, our neighborhood and our strategic relationship, global in geopolitics, is divided into three different paradigms. One is the immediate neighborhood, the second is extended neighborhood, and the third is strategic neighborhood. When we talk about Quebec, to my mind and understanding, it is actually falling far beyond the strategic neighborhood. Even if you do it, even if you start, what is it that you are looking at? Will you be able to achieve? If you can achieve within the resources available, without compromising the other priorities, well, go ahead. But when you carry out a cost-benefit analysis in a systematic manner, I personally feel the final takeaway are not going to commensurate with the effort that we put in. So this is one part.
I mean, we're saying we are open to supporting the cause of the people of Quebec. We are happy to give them a platform. We are happy to raise their concerns and their cause and their movement in international fora. We are even happy to go about bringing trilaterals and bringing in other like-minded countries who want to support the cause of Quebec. I don't think there is any, cost-effective measures or some sort of arithmetic that we need to think in our mind to then go about thinking whether we need to support the cause of Quebec. But also, I'm also being joined by Harinder Sikka, and if you can hear me, sir, what's your opinion particularly? How should we go further in our cause to give liberation to Quebec?
You see, I would rather first stick to basic points which Canadian government must understand. We cannot be taking head-on a country, and meddle into their internal affairs. I'm sorry to say that. We don't allow anybody to come in. We cannot be meddling into others.
I mean, I don't know if we are meddling in the concerns of a particular country, but we at this point in time are saying that there's freedom of speech and expression, and that's what we are providing to anybody who comes to India.
So allow me. So it's a dangerous ground which is turning into a quicksand, and Canada must understand. A handful of Khalistanis, I would repeat this, it's important, cannot speak on behalf of millions of Sikhs. We cannot speak about us sitting some 20, 30, 50,000 so-called Khalistanis, out of which 50% are paid, cannot talk about what we are, Sikhs. Die-hard Indians, Hindustani. Guru Nanak Ji said, Khurasan khaswana kiya, Hindustan daraya. Every Sikh remembers what Guru Nanak said about Hindustan. Now, the Canada cannot be, allowing terror to prosper in that part of the world. It is happening there, and it will have to have very serious consequences. Indira Gandhi made that mistake. It allowed the terror to sponsor and prosper in Harimandar Sahib, the tanks that were rolled in thereafter. And where we are, what consequences, what enormous amount of price had to be paid from both sides. It's not that just because Indira Gandhi passed away, things ended. No. It continues even today, and that is how Khalistanis have shifted there and drifted there.
You made that point in one of the earlier debates as well. I'm sorry, I'm out of time, but I thank all of you for joining me on this very special telecast. On that note, I slip into a short break. Thanks for watching.
For more such videos, subscribe to the NewsX YouTube channel, hit the bell icon. For more such videos, subscribe to the NewsX YouTube channel, hit the bell icon.